Okay, Max, I have a story to tell. It's the story of these two motherfuckers. They've scared me shitless, so let me start at the beginning. About 2 weeks ago, I decided that I wanted some styrofoam heads to hold a couple of my hats. I was only able to buy 2 at the time, and so I took the heads home and set them up on my shelf with my fedoras on them. But they just looked too bland, too boring. I decided that they needed to be artsied up a little bit, and when I gave them faces, that's when shit hit the fan. I decorated the one with the ping pong ball eyes first. I named him Pins and Needles due to the pins sticking out of his lips. Now I made it so his eyes are able to move when I want them to. I just roll the eyes in certain directions to make him look like he's looking that way. A few nights after I made Pins, I decided to decorate the other one. I named him Drips due to the dye that was pouring out of his mouth and eyes. But the real fun didn't start until about 3 nights after I'd finished decorating both of them. I first noticed something was amiss when I woke up one morning. The heads were on a shelf across my bed above my door, and saw that Pins was now sitting on my desk. His eyes were looking directly at me. As I remembered, I hadn't changed their position since I put them in. They were both pointed left, and now they were both looking straight. It struck me as a little bit odd, but I figured that it must have fallen off in the night, and I picked it up without remembering it. But that still doesn't explain the eyes moving. I tried to push it out of my head and put Pins back on the shelf of Drips. So nothing happened for a few days, and I'd almost forgotten about the thing entirely. But then, one night I woke up in the middle of the night and it was Drips this time who was out of place. He was sitting on my nightstand right next to my bed. I shout bricks. I know I didn't put him there. I live alone, so nobody else could have either. I hit him off my nightstand and threw a blanket over him and tried to go to sleep. The next morning, the cover was off him and he was sitting upright.
I find this highly unlikely. OP, you knocked it off and then went to sleep? Cursed heads. Bro, there is no sleep until you melt them with fire.
By now I was thoroughly freaked out by the damn heads. I didn't like them anymore, but I told myself that I was being irrational and scared for no reason. I picked Drips up off the floor and set him back up on the shelf with his horrific companion. Later that day, when I got back home from work, I took the fedoras off the heads and tossed both of the heads in the corner of my garage. I was finally able to sleep peacefully for a night or 2. So now, both the heads were stuffed in a corner in my garage. But then, about 2 nights ago, I woke up and they were both back on their fucking shelf. Both wearing their fedoras. Yellow one to Pins, black one to Drips. I freaked the hell out. I went downstairs to sleep on my couch. There's no way in hell that was possible. Now I'm convinced I'm losing my goddamn sanity. Inanimate objects can't fucking do this, can they? As I left off, I was sleeping on the couch downstairs. This was just last night. And when I woke up this morning, both of the fucking heads were sitting in the middle of my carpet. Pin's eyes were facing upwards towards me. I tore off the hats again and threw them in the garage again. I don't know why I didn't just throw them away. I know that I should have. So now I come to you guys, because I know that nobody else would believe me. I need your help. What the fuck do I do to these things? They're scaring the hell out of me. And I think they're moving around more frequently. I'm not going to sleep tonight. I can't stand one more night with these heads watching me. I'll keep you guys updated if anything more happens with these. I need advice and opinions. You guys are right. I should burn them. We'll do it tomorrow, but tonight, I can't. Tonight, I'm staying up and making sure that those fuckers stay where they belong. I'm scared. Guys, I'm honestly more scared than I've ever been.
Sleepwalking? Ban them, and they won't come back if it's actually you. If it's something truly paranormal, they will.
No, I've never sleepwalked in my life. I'm always pretty still when I sleep. But I need to know that burning them will work. I would be out of ideas if the burning doesn't do the trick.
You can just start sleepwalking. A lot of things can trigger it. You'll never know if you actually were. Burn them, just in case.
No way. Don't burn them yet. Keep them in the burn pot with a video camera facing them. Then we'll see if they move. I need proof of this shit. Vids or it didn't happen. If, for whatever reason, you don't have something to record with, I call bullshit.
Okay. I'll see what I can do. How long should I put the video camera on for? I'll do it tomorrow. One night, you think?
Yeah, overnight. Put it on before you hop into bed. I'm already excited for the results.
Okay, expect to hear back from me tomorrow night. I'll charge my camera and have it placed to the corner where I set the heads. I swear to God, if the camera does actually show something, I'm gonna freak the fuck out. This will be the name I'll be posting out so you guys know it's me.
Don't worry, I think we'll all be freaking the fuck out for you if it does move. Can't wait. Good luck.
Especially interested. Good creepypasta regardless of truth.
Kittens were a handful. I knew that beforehand, before adopting the little guy I have now, but didn't fully grasp how much attention they needed. Growing up, we'd always had adult cats, or at least I never remembered the periods when they were younger. We always seemed to have one or two around. However, and I suppose that's why I made the decision to adopt one when I moved into my own place, it didn't feel right not to have one of the demanding fuzzballs running around my feet or claiming my pillows when I wanted to go to bed. He was named Boo, although the name wasn't my choice. Boo was the offspring of a nanny cat which had been taken to the local shelter when the mother cat was found at a murder scene. Some guy, recently released from rehab or prison or something, found between two apartment buildings and shoved behind a dumpster both shared. Boo's mother was nibbling on the guy's face or toe or something of the sort when the police showed up. After the mother died in birth, an event that only Boo survived among the entire litter, he'd been graciously taken in by a foster family until he was old enough to be adopted out. They were the ones who chose the name. Fitting, I suppose, given how much he likes jumping out of nowhere and scaring the shit out of me from time to time. Even my dog, an older member of my family that I've had since high school, isn't safe from Boo's pranks. Poor dog may never get a moment and avoids Boo when he can. The two don't really get along, but I suppose at Oreo's age, he isn't likely to get along with such an energetic little furball. It's a good thing that other things catch the little guy's attention, like the couch pillows, the curtains, and whatever bug flies or crawls too close. It's this that I think about as I make my way home from an early shift at work. Boo always seemed to be following something of his eyes, playfully batting at it or jumping into the air to snap at it with his mouth. I found a number of spiders and moths on the foot of my bed from these antics. Once or twice, there was even a small bird, though I don't know how he would have managed to catch any of those. He's not able to get outside. No matter how disgusted or upset I am with his gifts, however, he always responds with a cute little stretch and a tilt upwards of the head, seeming rather proud of himself. Sometimes, it even seems like he's smiling at me. And while waking up to a bed full of bugs isn't all that great, I can't stay mad at him for long. I locked my apartment door and stepped through. I decided I should buy him a new toy. The last few are already torn to shreds, and it won't be long before he decides to drag his clothes through the curtains again. But the first thing on my schedule is a nap. It's been quite a while since I've been up this early, let alone working hard labour while I'm at it, and I'm utterly exhausted. A few hours of rest won't hurt. I head straight to my bedroom, kicking off my shoes at the front door and throwing my jacket on the back of the couch as I pass through. I've barely stepped through my room's door when a cold stone drops on my stomach, and it feels like my lungs have been momentarily deflated. A split second later, my eyes fall into the black-white mass of my dog at the foot of my bed. His shaggy hair is torn out in patches and in disarray, his body still and his back twisted in an unnatural way. Not a moment after, Boo jumps up onto my bed from the side opposite of me, and I jump even more than I usually would have. It's enough to pull me out of my shock and finally take in a deep, shaky breath. There's already pressure building up between my eyes and a lump forming in my throat. Boo arches his back, pushing up onto his toes. He sits down, tail waving lazily and head tilted back, seeming rather proud of himself. It even seems like he's smiling at me. Hey guys, I have a story to tell. You probably won't believe me, and frankly, I'm done trying to convince people. It was about 3 weeks ago. I was on Google looking for some funny sites to look at. I found my way onto an image board. Everyone on the board spoke extremely cryptic nonsense. They said things like, "Hi all, I saw them tonight. Holding hands, we are up in the sky. 999-240-28. The king come down." That was one phrase that was used frequently. The king come down. At first, I thought it was spam because of the number strings that preceded it, but its use was way too frequent and erratic to be spam. There would be typos and the numbers didn't appear to be random. I decided, fuck it, I'll see what's going on with this site. I posted in what appears to be a random board, much like B. There was no discernible theme amongst the images and posts. I said, "Hello, I'm new, and I was looking to start a funny thread." Asked them to post their funniest pictures. That was the first time it started. I remember the first reply very clearly. It said, "Good to see you. You joined the help! Help!" From there it got strange. I was told to ignore the graphs. I assumed this was some sort of in-joke. From there, they began to speak like crazy people, posting seemingly random letters and numbers, characters from many languages, a few seemed Russian and Middle Eastern, as well as possibly Chinese and Korean characters. I had no idea what was going on. Then I saw the phrase again, numbers followed by "the king come down." Following that, my power cut off. Complete blackout. Freaked me out. I checked the fuses and the switches had just flipped. Flicking them back up, my power went back on. When I returned to my PC, there was an image on the screen of a young boy. He was Caucasian, no older than 10. I sat down, creeped out but feeling curious. The boy smiled and appeared to speak, but I couldn't hear anything. My speakers were on, so I turned up the volume. I could only just barely hear what he was saying. It was a hushed whisper. I turned the volume up full, and it was still only a faint whisper. His lips moved slowly. I pushed my head closer to try and figure out what he said. Then, he shouted loudly, a booming and terrifying voice screaming at me like a demonic god. The image had changed. The boy was crying, his eyes were bleeding heavily. His white arms tore the skin from his face. The power cut out again. Again, it was the fuses. When I got my power back, everything was normal. My PC booted up normally, and nothing creepy happened. Then I started receiving the emails. They were extremely cryptic, full of random numbers, much like the image board posts. I got an email that was in regular English too. It said this: "Just pass it on. Just fucking pass it on." I didn't know what it meant. I got up to get a drink and froze in fear. From my ceiling hung a man, his body swinging gently. On my wall written in dry blood were the words, "The king come down." I blinked and the sight was gone. For weeks this continued.
More!
I went back to the image board. I was sure I was going out of my mind, just about ready to commit myself to a fucking asylum. I read a post in coherent English that said something like, Pass on the king. Pass on the king. The thread 404 before I could even get to it. I went to make a new thread, and when I began typing, the words in my mind were not what appeared in the box. My fingers typed words by their own volition. I typed two things: HJHSUTHS and 4918484. The king come down. And somehow I realized I was passing it on. The crazy hallucinations stopped. I was good. I learned how to be safe. I'm sorry. HAKKSIITMS 44919174. The king come down. Have you ever heard of an old PC game called The Theatre? Yeah, I didn't think so. Probably because many people say it doesn't even exist. You see, The Theatre is an old computer game released around the same time as Doom. Today, if you ever find it, it's only available on crappy bootleg CD-ROMs, which, more often than not, don't even actually contain the game. The actual legitimate copies that they say were released back in the day feature a blank cover with nothing but the sprite of what has been since named the Ticket Taker. He is a simply but poorly drawn, pixelated Caucasian bald man with large red lips, wearing a red vest over a white shirt and black pants. He is completely emotionless, though some say that if you smash the disc, his face is shown to be angry the next time you look at the cover. But this is just dismissed as urban myth. What is peculiar about the theatre, though, is that there's no developer named on the jewel case, nor a game description on the back. It is simply the Ticket Taker, on a white backdrop on both sides. The game was initially known for its inability to install correctly. The installation process immediately locks up your computer when the user reaches its licensing agreement. Also strange about the licensing agreement for the theatre is that whenever the development studio is supposed to be named, the text is simply a blank line. Anyways, most people who have claimed to own one of the original CDs say they figured out how to install the game by simply rebooting their computer on the licensing agreement or the discs inside. Then they prompted to press I agree and start up. Then they continue with the installation. The game then starts up without any introduction besides the main menu, as simply the sprite of the movie theatre's exterior on empty city street. The title fades in, and then the three menu buttons: New Game, Load, Options. Selecting Options immediately crashes the game desktop. Load is set to not function at all, even if you do have a saved game. Nothing happens when pressing. Thus, New Game is the only working menu option. Once it's selected, you are in the first person view. You are standing in an empty movie theatre lobby, with the exception of the ticket taker standing in front of a dark hallway, which one can only assume leads to the theatres themselves. There's nothing to do but look at the poorly drawn, mostly illegible movie posters and approach the ticket taker. Once the player moves towards the ticket taker, a very low quality sound clip plays, saying, "Thank you, please enjoy the movie," along with a speech box saying the same thing. You then walk into the hallway and the screen fades to black, and you're back in the empty lobby, and you do the exact same thing again and again and again. While this may seem like a really horrible game, a number of peculiar things occur as you continue to play it. The number of times you have to continue into the hall after giving a ticket to the ticket taker before the strange events happen is unknown. Most state that it's completely random and can take anywhere from the first playthrough to the 400th. What happens though has deeply disturbed some players. The first occurrence is when the player fades back in after walking into the hallway. This time, they will notice the ticket taker is completely absent. The player then, without any other options, decides to walk into the dark hallway. The sound clip and text box mentioned previously is still playing in the absence of the ticket taker. But when the player walks into the hallway, the screen does not fade out. It goes pitch black as they walk deeper into the hall. But the player's footsteps sound clip is still playing as they continue to push the up button on their keyboard. Those claiming to have played the original game report that they have felt extremely uncomfortable walking down the hallway, anticipating the whole way something horrible happening. Well, eventually, the player is unable to move forward. There is nothing for a few moments before a strange sprite that's described as the ticket taker but with a swirl for a face appears and stands before the player. The original players of the game say that their bodies immediately froze up and their stomachs churned when they saw the sprite that has been appropriately named Swirly Head Man. Nothing happens as Swirly Head Man stands before them. Then suddenly a piercing screech plays and the game glitches out. This lasts for a few minutes with the screeching being continuous. Then the players abruptly return to the lobby with all the sounds and graphics being as they should be. The game continues normally for the next couple of cycles of entering the hallway, with a couple of the original players claiming the Swirly Man will briefly appear and disappear in the corner of the screen as a brisk yelp sound effect played. Then, at some point after meeting the Swirly Head Man, the player sees the ticket taker pacing back and forth, though there's no walking animation. The sprite's limbs are completely static, but he just hops slightly up and down as a substitute, with his eyes being wide and his mouth open to simulate a worried facial emotion. Some players noted that the movie posters have been replaced with images of the Swirly Head Man, which caused them to immediately turn their character's head away from the posters and approach the ticket taker. Then another different, low-quality sound clip plays, but the speech box contains nothing but corrupted characters that cause whatever text would have been there in the box to be completely illegible. Due to the extremely low quality of the sound, it is debated by players what exactly the ticket taker says at this point, though it is widely agreed he says, "Never reach the other levels." Then the screen fades out once again and returns the player back to their starting point in the lobby. But the ticket taker is gone, and the hallway is blocked off by a large brick wall sprite. Touching the brick wall will immediately crash the game, and that's all there is to it. No one knows what the other levels are or how to gain access to them, nor is it known why the Swirly Head Man causes such acute fear in those who have seen him in the game. All the original copies of the theatre have either been lost or destroyed, but the creepiest part is the fact that all the original players of the game claim to occasionally see a brief glimpse of the Swirly Head Man out of the corner of their eyes.
Okay, so I haven't talked about this in a very long time. This happened to me when I was like 10 or 11. My dad had bought a VHS tape from Scooby-Doo, an episode which I can't fully recall. All I can remember is that it was about a little girl's ghost haunting a whole town, so our parents didn't go out very much, since my brother suffers from asthma, and they were very protective with him. But one night, they had this important party thing, and they decided to call a babysitter. I remember getting upset and telling them that I was old enough to take care of my brother, but of course they didn't listen. So they left us with this freckly 15-year-old neighbour girl called Amanda or something close. Before leaving, Dad gave us the tape, which got us pretty excited, being the first time Dad was to let us use the VHS player. After they left, we all noticed that the tape was kind of weird. The art on the cover looked handmade somehow. Scooby looked really terrified, and the ghost girl was really creepy. I remember Amanda calling my dad a weirdo for buying such a thing for their kids. I assume he just picked up the first tape he saw. I also remember that Amanda wouldn't want to play the tape, but me and my brother insisted for like an hour, and we finally sat in front of the TV to play the thing. The episode was actually kind of boring. There were almost no jokes, and it wasn't that scary. But I do remember being surprised that the ghost from the cover didn't look at all like the one in the tape. I don't really remember the plot of the episode. I guess it was pretty much the usual. And Amanda would repeat stupid show every 5 minutes. So close to the end, when they got the ghost girl and were about to unmask her, something weird happened. Suddenly, all of the Scooby Gang stopped talking and looked at the camera with a really sad and serious look on their faces. They just stared at us, like for a very long time. Even the background music stopped. The only one looking down was the ghost girl. Suddenly, she lifted her head up and stared at the camera with her terrible eyes wide open, and the final credits came abruptly. We all stared at the TV without saying a word, until the tape finally stopped. We were so freaking shocked. And suddenly, my brother looked at us and said something like, "Shit, I can't believe Shaggy died. This is so fucked up." We both looked at him, confused, and Amanda asked him what he was talking about. He insisted that it was stupid to kill a character and then bring him back to life in the next episode. She got really nervous and told him that Shaggy didn't get killed, that the ghost girl disappeared right after they catched them, and the episode finished with the whole gang scared to death. Nothing made any sense. I couldn't understand a thing. When I told them what I saw, Amanda freaked out, said like 10 times it wasn't funny, and left our house pissed off, and I assume scared to her bones just like we were. After discussing for like half an hour, we decided to put the tape in and watch it again. We turned all the lights on and pushed rewind. The thing is, when it got to the part where they get the girl, the episode freaking ends. Nothing happens. They get the girl and there's no unmasking, no killing, no staring. It just ended there. We stopped the tape and ran to our room. My brother had an asthma attack and I stayed by his bed crying and praying he wouldn't die. Eventually, we fell asleep. On the next morning, my brother started acting like nothing had happened. After insisting on him for like 2 days, he told me that he never wanted to talk about it again, and that was it. Damn, I think I actually never told anyone about this. It's good to share it. When the game starts, you're alone in a bunker. You cross off another day on the calendar and start to check your gear. You prepare to leave for the nearest town. You strap on your gas mask and pull up your hood. The green light on your oxygen gauge tells you that you'll be able to survive in the airless environment outside. The world was brought to a complete standstill when the air started dissipating. Most didn't know what was happening before it was too late. It wasn't how humanity had figured it would end. All in all, it was very silent. Quick affair without the big explosions or screaming masses fleeing. In fact, no one could have imagined a quieter apocalypse. People simply fell where they stood or sat at the time. There wasn't the time to evacuate. And where would people have gone anyway? Those who survived were the people who had planned ahead, who had prepared for the impossible. The reward was solitude on a lifeless, airless planet. But at least there was plenty of time to think and reflect. The end happened so quickly that the destruction was limited. You have entire cities open for exploration and treasure hunting. Only, you have to watch your air gauge. The air gauge itself is on your suit/clothes, not on your UI. So you have to look down to see it. If you forget it, you might end up fucked unless you can somehow find air. You move around empty schoolyards, apartment buildings, and skyscrapers. The lack of air preserved the billions of bodies worldwide relatively longer than they otherwise would have been. And now, the empty planet is a maelstrom of dried up human husks littering streets and buildings. You'd have to scavenge for stuff to improve your gear, so you could stay out longer. Through exploring, you might find other safe bunkers, and you'll be able to move around more freely. And then there'd be the enemies. Would they be something that doesn't require air, which could stalk you and make you feel watched? Less open threat that might attack when you least suspect it. Would there be others? Maybe you'd have to find them first. Would you even go armed? No air would mean no sound, so all you'd have was the clicking of the gas mask, and maybe whatever contemporary band you managed to put on that banged up scavenged iPod you managed to find in the pocket of a body near the airport terminal. You'd have to consider getting fuel for the generator in your safe house as well. Your only contact with other people would be some guy, or girl I guess, who you talk to frequently over what's left of the internet or some shit. Or some old radio type thing, like you've known him for years. Never seen him. He's your only company in an otherwise dead world, and he's holed up somewhere else exactly like you. One day, he stops signing in / going on the air, and you decide to find out what happened to him. You only have a faint idea where his bunker is, and you know you wouldn't have enough air together in one stretch. And that's where the game really begins. Do you make an effort to find him, or find out what happened to him? Or do you just go on with your life, salvaging, exploring, and listening to your own breathing as you make your way through the still graveyard of humanity?